Good morning. My name is Benedette Boule, and I'll be your host for today. Now, before we proceed, allow us to go through some housekeeping. Kindly note that all guests are muted, so if you have any questions, you're welcome to post them in the chat. If you have the option to send a comment to everyone on the webinar or to direct messages to anyone you'd like to network with. Now, our hashtags for today are Changemakers 2021, Just a Women's Day 2021, and Citi Foundation. At the end of this morning's discussions, we'd love to take a group photo with all of you so that our studio will bring you into the event platform. Please hang around for this exciting item on our agenda. Now, it's been said, Watinta bafazi, watinta mbogoto. Loosely translated, you strike a woman, you strike a rock. It's been 65 years since this famous phrase was chanted, and 20,000 brave women took to the streets to fight for the freedom of women and petition against past laws. Thanks to their efforts, women in South Africa share equal rights and are recognized as equal citizens. It would be remiss of us not to appreciate the women that have gone before us as we commemorate Women's Day. As a country, we celebrate not only the historic, heroic women of South Africa, but our generation, who are taking our spaces, opening doors for the women of tomorrow, but most importantly, changing the narrative. Now, this year's conference focuses specifically on the roles of women as change makers and leaders in the corporate and entrepreneurial space. Our discussions will explore how young women can overcome barriers to entering the job market and grow their businesses, while we equip you with the tools to do just that. Today, we're joined by an amazing panel of women who are leaders of industry and who will take us through how they have overcome the barriers in their journeys. So trust me when I say you're in good hands. This event would not have been possible without the amazing partnership we share with Citi Foundation. Thank you for continuously empowering our efforts as we carve pathways for tomorrow's leaders. On that note, we'd like to welcome Peter Taylor, who's the Managing Director, Chief Country Officer at Citibank South Africa, and who has something to share with the change makers here today. Over to you, Peter.
Hello, everyone. I'm Peter Taylor, the CEO of Citi South Africa. I'm proud to partner with Junior Achievement South Africa to host the groundbreaking Changemakers Women's Day Conference. We're living in a time when uncertainty is the only certainty. Our lives and livelihoods, as well as the business landscape throughout the world, has been disrupted by the COVID pandemic in unprecedented ways. The theme for the conference is about empowerment, strength, and unity. The conference is premised on the idea that sustainable economic growth is impossible without women empowerment, and asks the questions: what does female empowerment mean? How do we address the gender disparity in leadership gap? And how can female entrepreneurs grow and scale their businesses? The conference will discuss these concepts and what they mean for you and your business. The issue of gender equality continues to gain momentum globally. Working women contribute greatly to education, health, and wellness, and achieving gender equality is critical to economic development. We need to ensure that women have equal opportunities and resources in order to move towards inclusive economic structures. The time has come to break barriers and stereotypes and find ways to promote inclusivity and to drive change. I hope you participate and engage. There's a great lineup of speakers and panelists, and I wish you all success. Please enjoy the conference.
Uncertainty is the only certainty. Thank you for those words, Peter. Now, before we proceed, we'd like to welcome everyone to be part of the conversation. Should you have any comments or questions, please post them now. If you're listening and want to say something to us, we'd love to hear from you. Now, to echo Peter's remarks, is that change is the only constant. Women empowerment and the strides made in ensuring gender equality is important for our economy and the growth as a nation. Someone who's spearheading that cause is Gina Schoeman. Now, Gina is the economist and head of research at Citibank South Africa. She has been with Citi for 8 years and has extensive experience in the banking sector, having worked with the likes of Barclays Capital, Macquarie, and Standard Bank. Gina holds a BCom Honours from the University of Cape Town and a postgraduate from the Gibbs Business School. Gina is consistently top-rated in local and global analyst rankings and is passionate about about mentoring young professionals and promoting gender equality. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you for having me.
Really nice having you here today. This is fun, hey? Okay, so Gina, I know that you're part of a small minority of economists in the country, and we're quite excited to have you. Thank you. Talk us through the journey as a leader of industry and how you got started in the industry.
Wow. I mean, this is going back quite a few years.
Yeah.
But I started off my career not knowing I would be an economist. I started off knowing that I was interested in financial markets, but I think like a lot of us, you don't always get exactly the direction you hope for when you're about to enter into university. Started off looking at being a chartered accountant. But very quickly, I realized that I was very interested in the way the world works, the way people work.
Okay.
And so that got me onto the economics track.
Yeah.
And it was Standard Bank's graduate program
Okay.
that first got me into an economics role. So I was on the graduate position. We were rotating through the business in various ways. And South Africa had their first house price boom.
Oh.
And as a result of that, they needed more hands-on when it came to property economics. And that was the first time I got truly involved with probably the first strong woman
Wow.
in my career, who was Elna Mulman, who is still at Standard Bank. She's one of the senior economists there. Following on from that, I worked with Elna on property economics. And then some of these names might resonate with people who are following some of the strong women in our economy.
Sure.
I put up my hand, and let me explain what I mean by that. I wanted more.
Okay.
I wanted to be more than just property economics. So I was reading and I started to communicate with people. I mean, what can you lose?
Yeah.
So I was reading the Financial Mail and I kept reading a column by the same economist from Merrill Lynch at the time, but she then became an independent, Nazmira Mula.
Oh, okay, nice.
And her email address was there. So I emailed her and I said, I'd love a cup of coffee just to find out how you became an economist.
So you're quite a go-getter. And I think if we're talking about breaking barriers, it's quite important to go for what you want. And mentorship is quite important.
Yes, there's formal mentorship, but then you don't always need formal mentorship. You can also follow someone.
Yeah.
And you can look up to them and you can echo them, you can shadow them without them even knowing it sometimes.
Yeah.
So there's also almost an informal type of mentoring that I think can be almost just as useful.
Yeah. I think we don't realize that you can actually learn from someone from a distance, actually.
Yes. And then at the same time, I don't think we realize that when you ask someone how happy, and I think this is such a good quality of women, we all want to give back.
Women work very well together and love collaborating, right?
Exactly. And so I find in any woman's journey in their career, they naturally start picking up other women along the way.
Yeah.
And it's not a drag, it creates momentum. And that's a beautiful thing.
I was smiling when you were saying that they actually feel honored when you actually approach them and you say, look, I'd love to learn from you. Can I take you out for coffee or anything of that nature, right?
Absolutely. I mean, any young woman who's come to me to ask me questions, to want to know more, you feel so honored. You feel sometimes quite overwhelmed.
Yes.
Here you have an opportunity to really positively influence someone. And again, what a great thing.
So the women in South Africa are actually quite collaborative. And how do you feel that they're changing the landscape? With that attitude that we have, how are we changing the landscape in South Africa?
Well, I will certainly say that over the last 5 years, I have picked up such a bigger momentum of gender empowerment.
Yeah.
So whether it be youngsters or more senior women in the workplace, there is more collaboration.
Yes.
And I think it comes with the awareness because at the same time, women can't do this with only women. We need the input and the collaboration of the men in the workplace. They need to buy into it. And thankfully, we've seen that in such a big way over the last 5 years. So I think that's been a huge shift. I mean, at Citi, globally, we now are the only Wall Street bank with a female CEO, Jane Fraser.
Yes.
I mean, what a wonderful thing. And the qualities that are coming with her leadership are quite outstanding compared to qualities we've seen, and not to say men aren't great leaders, of course they are, but the change and shift of more equality in leadership it's fantastic.
So it's definitely bring a different dynamic to the workplace as well.
Well, yes, I mean, there's a huge emphasis on flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
There is a massive emphasis on inclusivity.
Yeah.
In other words, gender, race, culture. And by doing
I
that
was
as
on
your
mute.
first
Hi,
step,
Ashley. How are you?
you almost naturally
Okay,
reduce
now
other
you.
things in the
I'm
workplace like
good,
aggression.
thank you. Did you manage to
So
catch
it is
any part of
it's
the
been a
conference
wonderful
yet?
shift over the last 5 years.
Yeah, for
Pardon?
sure. What are the
Did,
trends we see in
did you
women-led
manage to
businesses and
catch any
corporates in South Africa?
of the
Well,
conference?
in some ways, South Africa, so we look a lot at
No,
ESG nowadays,
Can you
not
hear
which is
me?
really.
environment, social, and governance.
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you
Through
now,
looking
much better.
You can
at
hear
a
me. Okay,
country
perfect.
with an ESG lens,
Okay.
we're finding that South Africa is actually
I think
quite well placed when
from
it
my
comes to
side,
women in the workplace. We have quite a good
I
representation at a
think
middle management level.
Yeah.
Where we're lagging behind, but this is like most countries,
Okay.
it's at the very
Um,
senior level. So it's still, you're not going to find many women in CEO positions.
Okay.
You're not going to find enough women on boards in South Africa. But still, I would say for the momentum coming through the ranks, South Africa is still faring somewhat better than some of our emerging market peers, which is a very good thing. I also think we're having a much deeper conversation and broader conversation.
Yeah.
And if there's one quality I find about South Africans, is especially in the financial markets, we have a voice.
Yes.
We are not scared to speak up, but you can only do that if you have the support of those around you.
Yeah.
So I do think there's something to be said about our rainbow nation. I think
Yeah.
maybe South Africa's natural tendency to embrace diversity for so long now is actually giving us an edge versus other countries who haven't done this.
And that voice is quite important in our continent. It's quite important in our country. And I see that there's quite a shift in women getting into male-dominated roles.
Yes. I mean, my industry is definitely one. When I started off in the, not just financial markets, but on the trading floor,
Yeah.
just men.
Yeah.
And with that came, as being a woman walking around a trading floor full of men, you can imagine some of the jeering, some of the
Yeah.
teasing, some of the, not always badly intended. This is just how men were conditioned.
Yeah.
They thought it was okay. But that is also completely shifted. The number of women we now have across the world on trading floors at Citi is almost equal to the number of men.
Okay.
And certainly the culture, the workplace itself, you don't get that same jeering,
Yeah.
that same teasing,
Yeah.
wolf whistles, etc. There's far more respect. So I think the structure has become far more flat.
Yeah. Yeah, I think culture in any organization is quite important when women get into the job market. Hey, having to look at the values. Are there synergies between the values of the organization and your synergies as an individual and as a woman, right? But it's really interesting to see that there is now a leveling of the playing field, so to speak.
Yes, but, and this I think is a very important thing, it has to come from the top.
Yeah, a top-down approach.
Yes, juniors still will look up to their seniors to lead by example. So I think that is absolutely critical. The top has to lead. The top has to set the example.
No, absolutely. So what are some of the economic barriers that women are facing?
Well, certainly when it comes to pay, we still have the pay gap.
We still have a long way to
We have the pay gap, and I think that's still a lot of effort needs to go into that, and recognition and continuous acknowledgement that that is being addressed. So that's one thing. Another is flexibility, which hopefully the pandemic might have helped with,
Yeah.
because I'm a working mother.
Sure.
I've got 3 children.
Sure.
And the best thing for me, having joined Citi, is Citi hired me when I was pregnant with my first child.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that is quite unusual. And this is why it's been such a good place to nurture my career. I then proceeded to have 3 children within 4 years.
While
and not
still at
once,
Citi, hey?
while still at Citi, and not once was I pressured as to when you coming back to work, or did I feel the risk of my role changing. But I do think that is a big fear for a lot of other women. So companies need to be able to enable a trustworthy environment so women feel safe and enabled to become working mothers. Because let me tell you one thing, your productivity absolutely soars.
Yeah.
They always say, give something to a busy person and it will get done. Believe me, you give something to that working mother who has to be home by a certain hour
Yeah.
to see her kids, to spend that quality time. And I think if you respect those parameters, but I do think it's better for some industries, less for others.
Yeah.
And it's also hugely dependent on your manager.
Yeah.
So again, coming from the top down.
Yeah, the top-down leadership is quite important, and being comfortable to get into a space and being able, look, I'm starting a family, but I'm also quite passionate about my job. I'm quite passionate about so many things, because I think the stigma that goes with, okay, is she pregnant again? Is she starting
Yes.
again? It's just going to pull down, and now we have to find someone else. But the fact that organizations like Citi are bringing in and saying, no, we welcome you, we incorporate it, because it doesn't mean that you stop being productive. You stop adding value. If more than anything, you bring more because you come in with more skills, right?
Absolutely. I think the skills that not just a working mother, but just a woman can bring to the workplace. Remember, there's that maternal instinct,
Yeah.
whether you have children or not.
Yeah.
That means you're going to bring quite a lot of empathy.
Yes.
You're naturally going to be inclusive.
Yeah.
And you can be, I call it soft and hard. Not hard in a bad way,
Yeah.
but you're firm about your own boundaries.
Yeah.
You're firm about what you want, but you also have a softer side of you that I think brings other individuals in, because you can show that you're inclusive. So no, I think we have so many skills, and it's almost as if you need both. You need to balance it
You
out.
need to strike a balance, yeah. Totally. We spoke about mentorship earlier, and you spoke about how you approach is it Eleanor?
Elna.
Alna. Okay, thank you for that correction. So besides her, who do you look up to for mentorship or inspiration?
So I've kind of done it along my career path. So I've had mentors or examples I've followed depending on where I was.
Yeah.
At the time when I was at Standard Bank, Elna Mollman she was just such a rich economist in terms of, the way she thought, the way she wrote. And she taught me so much from that perspective. Nazmira Mula, who is now at 91, we worked together at Macquarie.
Okay.
So after I had that coffee with her, I realized that actually that was an interview. I was trying to find out about her, but she was
You were
actually
trying to
trying to
interview
find
me.
about me. And we started, and she hired me into Macquarie, which was my first real role in the financial markets. And I watched Nazmira, I watched how she did things. And sometimes I think that's what you need to do.
Yes.
Quieten down, watch, and use that as an example. And you almost have a bit of space when you're a junior to practice.
Yeah.
You're not always put on the spot, so you get to watch a lot and learn. Following from that, I haven't only had women mentorship.
Yeah.
I've also had men in my career that I've looked up to, and one that I consistently still do is my current manager at Citi, David Lubin. He heads up emerging markets. He sits in London.
Okay.
He hired me when I was pregnant, and I'll never forget that moment, because I sat there and I said to him, I've had a development. I'm pregnant. He looked me straight in the eye and said, well, that's wonderful. We're not hiring you for 9 months. So
Yes.
it was such a relief to know that you could just be who you wanted to be and create the life you want, knowing you have the faith in yourself to be productive,
Tough.
to give of yourself to an organization. So that mentorship has been very important for me along the way.
I like that as dual mentorship, because as much as we are women, we can still learn from men as well. Hey? Now, I always think of the young girl who's watching us and say, I don't know what career path I want to go into. I like this economy thing that Gina is talking about, but what are the practical tools? If someone's 15, getting into grade 11, grade 12, subject choices. Give me some guide. Tell us what your advice would be for that young girl.
So to be an economist, you do have to have a grasp on numbers. You're going to work with a lot of numbers. So mathematics is necessary. A good grasp of the English language, or whatever you're going to be writing your economic publications and research in whichever language that is very important.
So-
In my role, in my industry, I don't write very long, extensive academic research papers. Mine are more a mixture between that and, let's say, what the financial journalists are doing.
Okay.
I'm trying to drive one point home very quickly to a set of investors who literally only have 5 minutes to read.
Sure.
So you have to be very detailed, but you've got to be very punchy
the
too.
point.
So any skills around the written and spoken language of choice is very important. Other than that, I would say also just get curious.
Yeah.
Believe me, economics sounds so much more complex in a textbook,
Yeah.
but it's actually all around us.
Yeah.
You can break it down into hamburgers and milkshakes, supply and demand.
Yes.
Watch the news.
Yeah.
Read a newspaper just every day. Subscribe to one or grab one that's free. Get their newsletter, read it every day, and you'll start learning so much more about the world, about the economies. So from there, you would have to do an economics degree at university. And then there are kind of two paths. So I took the less walked path.
Which is?
I didn't finish off my university career thinking I'm going to be an economist. Otherwise, I would have gone down a more formalized route,
Yeah.
which would kind of like a medical doctor. You go and do your time at the South Africa Reserve Bank or the National Treasury. And once you've got that on your CV, you move into one of the smaller banks. I joined Standard Bank's grad program,
Okay.
opening myself up to, whatever I might find interesting, which is, and I do think grad programs are very good from that perspective.
Sure.
What if you thought you would be an economist, but actually you work out you're very good at sales and marketing? A graduate program rotates you through a bank or any other company, and you get exposure to areas that you never would have thought otherwise. So I, through that, got exposure to the economics. And because I had the economics background through my academics, I naturally fell into it.
Great stuff. Any parting remarks on your side, Gina? Before
I
we
would
continue?
say just keep going at it. Stand up for what you believe in, but also stand up for those around you, because you're not going to do this alone. You're going to need the support of those above you and those around you.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Gina Schoeman from Citi. Stay curious, stay hungry. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. Now, we've got an exciting thing for everyone that's watching, an exciting quiz for everyone that's watching. The fastest fingers are the first to stand a chance to win 500 Rand in takealot.com vouchers. We have a question we'd like to pose you from the discussions I've had with Gina. So if you were listening, we'll be able to see and be able to give you that prize. At which institution did Gina kickstart her career? At which institution did Gina kickstart the career? Just to repeat the question again, at which institution did Gina kickstart her career? Fastest fingers gets the prize. Lerato, well done. Congratulations, you've won the prize. We've got your details, so we'll send that over to you. Now, we move on to an exciting discussion with some panelists, as you can see next to me and on the screen, amazing women who've made strides in their careers and will talk us through how they've overcome the barriers in their journeys. We have Busi Tusi, who's the head of procurement and transformation at Coca-Cola Beverage South Africa, Zodwa Pagate, who is the co-founder and CEO at ZPM Ventures, Aleta Mujvoto, who is the Southern Africa Regional Yali Coordinator at USAID, Mosibudi Makhatu, who is the co-founder at Yamamachanger, and Zintle Nkosi, who is the founder and director at Utongo Olusha. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Now, I'm going to start with you, Busi. What are the barriers you face when entering the job market? But before you start, tell us a little bit about yourself and then get into the question if you don't mind.
Okay, about me, I graduated from the University of Pretoria with a BCom in financial accounting, and then I further studied for an honors in accounting sciences.
Okay.
So obviously, I started my career in the accounting profession,
Yeah.
and at a later stage, obviously, I did my MBA with Henley. So currently, obviously, I've moved through various roles within. I started my career with South African breweries, and then I've moved over to the soft drinks industry,
So,
where I'm currently with Coca-Cola. But I
okay.
mean, I've been mainly in the finance sector as well as in procurement. And basically, within my role currently, I look after supply development as well. For suppliers, I look after the SME fund. We've got a fund for our SMEs, as well as basically ensuring transformation and diversity within the business from a procurement point of view. So that involves making sure that we've got enough or female entrepreneurs that we do business with.
Okay, fantastic. I mean, you spoken of how it's so interesting. You studied accounting and you're now sitting in the procurement role. So you've obviously needed to navigate to get there. What barriers did you face and how did you overcome them?
So I think just like Gina, I was also fortunate that I joined South African Breweries through their graduate right? So I think
Okay.
that in a way it helps you facilitate, amongst different departments and different positions, which
So,
helps you find fit. But I
yeah.
think some of the challenges early on in my career is obviously, I wanted to fit in,
You
and
wanted to fit
that at
in.
times tend to be frustrating because we sometimes forget to be authentic and be ourselves, and we want to fit in because, yeah, we're starting off. And that also, you find that you end up suppressing your voice. You end up not wanting to voice your views because you don't want to upset the status quo.
Yeah.
So, having a voice and making sure that you are heard is
Yeah.
something that you need to work quite early in your career. But I think a lot of young professionals, we make that mistake. And also, what we tend to struggle is because we want to be perfect.
Yeah.
Mistakes we beat ourselves up, and
Yeah.
it's important to make sure that you only learn, from those mistakes. Obviously, it's okay to make mistakes, but obviously does not cost
Yeah.
the company a lot, but you need to be able to learn from that. And I think the last thing that I would mention is time management is key. You
Time
need to learn
management.
early on to manage your time and prioritize. I mean, you can say take on each and every project. You might find that you burn yourself out or you are not able to deliver.
So, so I picked up three things from the barriers that you faced, and I love how you actually talk about, because that is something that a lot of people face when entering the job market. You're so eager to please, you're so eager to want to stand out that you almost blend in and forget your own person, yeah? Okay, awesome stuff. Thank you so much for that. So it was the graduate program played a key role in you overcoming or entering the job market per se, and then just also finding your own voice within that space. Okay, thank you so much for that. I'd like to bring it back to Zodwa. As a co-founder and CEO of ZP, is it ZPM?
Yep.
ZPM Ventures. Talk us through your journey. Tell us about yourself, and then how you got to being the CEO of ZPM Ventures.
Okay, so I'm a mother of a 14-year-old daughter, and I started my career with BP Southern Africa.
Okay.
Straight out of university. So that was a very interesting journey for me because one of my first projects was actually participating in the divestment of BP from Swaziland and Lesotho.
So,
And I think through that process, it was interesting to see how we managed different stakeholders. So from government to business to safety, when you leave a country, to creation of entrepreneurs. And I think that's when, without even realizing it, the entrepreneurial bug
Yeah.
bit, because I understood how through different processes, you could actually build entrepreneurs out of the local people. And there's some of those service stations that are still in existence today. And that was over 18 years ago.
wow. Okay.
And I spent about over 5 years at BP, and then I went to Microsoft, South Africa. And as chief of staff in that role, I think I was exposed to all areas of the business. And I think that's where the technology bug started to bite. And I've been in technology since. So from that role, I went on to Dimension Data, and I've always known that technology is so transformational to a society. It can impact people's lives very positively. And I've always known in my career that whatever I choose to do, the call of God over my life will always be to do something that impacts others. So, and technology was the route for me that I decided I would take. And it hasn't been an easy journey because entrepreneurship is actually very hard. And, you know, there's a couple of things that I've learned along the way. The first thing is simplicity of your product or your service, whatever it is that you're offering. You shouldn't have to over-explain what it is that you're taking to market. Number two, how you're going to monetize it. So how your product will actually get money and make you money and access to those markets. So because that's why networks become very important. Up to today, I still go back to the networks that I had in my university days, in my first job. So it's very important that your journey actually, you're not stepping on toes. Whatever you're doing it with excellence, because 20 years later, I'm going back to speak to my first ever boss who can actually impact what I'm doing today. You know, so that monetizing, how you're actually going to make a profit of it. And then your credibility. You're going to need capital. You're going to need big business to open their doors for you. And it's very, very important that you're seen as credible. You're going to have to go to banks, go to funders. An investor will also want to know your value sets, your business philosophy. So it becomes, in a nutshell, those three things become very key for you to take on your journey as an entrepreneur, whether you're a startup, whether you're middle of the road. But I find if you're going to build something that's consistent and that's sustainable into the future, you're going to have to go with simplicity, networks, how you monetize it, and a sense of credibility that you build along the way. And you can only build that through making sure that you're competent at what you do. You're not making mistakes, you're not dropping the ball, and you continue to learn.
I like what you said about being simple and realizing that whoever you engage with will definitely influence your journey. So being able to know how to speak to people and being able to know how to network and making sure that, you know, throughout your reaching the ceiling or, you know, kind of your way up in the career space, you're making friends, you're networking, you know, and you are building those relationships because they're lifetime relationships, right? Okay, thank you. I think we've also spoken to how to overcome barriers in terms of simplicity.
Building your credibility as well, because there's real credibility and there's perceived credibility. So you have to find a way of understanding what that is. So my business partner and I recently went to look for funding from one of the major investment banks, and their due diligence went way beyond the references we had given them. So they got their view of us as a business and as individuals from, you know, a slew of other people. So you have to make sure that there's the real perception, but your perceived credibility, even externally,
Yeah.
is consistent with your brand. When people think about, if someone raises your name in a room, what is it that is being said? Because
Yeah.
that's what's going to take your business forward.
So, yeah. Okay, thank you for that. I'd like to welcome Uzinhle, who's the founder of Utungo Olusha. Zinhle, are you there? Good morning.
Hi, Valerie. Good morning. How are you?
Now, Zinhle is actually an alumni of JA South Africa, but through her own efforts has been managing and growing an empire. Zinhle, tell us a bit about your business, and we'll talk about what barriers you're facing into entering the business space.
Hey, well, Utsungolusa is a company that aims to, mitigate the mismanagement of candle in our homes, especially homes in communities like my community, which is Cape Town.
Yeah.
So it's a community where we still have no electricity or formal electricity rather. So I saw a need of actually bridging that in a way of using waste materials to create or redesign them shades that are battery or solar powered. And this includes a lot of manufacturing because we work with a lot of waste material and different kinds of them.
Okay.
So one of the barriers that I experienced a lot was, having that support or mentorship, especially in this industry where it is male dominated. So when you come in as a woman, you are being questioned a lot. The quality of your product is questioned a lot.
Yeah.
You do not get to have that support that you need as a woman in this sector. So that was one of the barriers that I experienced. And then another barrier was a lack of motivation. As I said that I come from a community where it's still underdeveloped in many ways. So you find that success is still defined as, having that grade 12, and then after grade 12, get a job, feed your family.
Yeah.
But when you come and propose the idea of being the one who wants to employ, it becomes a question in the sense that it becomes so difficult that you end up even at some point questioning your own sanity that, okay, am I on the right track this time around? Why is everyone opposing and I'm going this direction? So yeah, it was really difficult for me to actually find my ground, but then with all the motivation that I gave myself and my family as well. Yeah, I went through.
I like your story, Zinhle, because you're fixing problems in your own community, and like you say, you're bridging the gap, right? It's quite an important thing to do as women. Aleta, I'm going to pick on you now. You, the Yali coordinator at USAID.
Hi, Bernadette, I can hear you.
Are you well?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you? And good morning to everyone.
Good morning and welcome. The question that I had for you is tell us about yourself, first of all, and what barriers you faced when entering the job market.
Thank you, Bernadette. My name is Adleta Mshoto. I am from Zimbabwe. I've been in South Africa since 2010. I earned a BSc degree in rural and urban planning from the University of Zimbabwe, way back, I forgot when. And I graduated at the top of my class. So when I finished the first degree, I had so many options that were open to me. I could have gone straight into a job. I had interned with a construction company in Zimbabwe, and they wanted me back. But I also got a number of scholarship offers to continue education. So I decided to go on to a master's degree, and I earned that master's degree in environmental planning from the University of Botswana. So my first job in the like full work, I already had a master's degree.
Oh, that's
and I was in demand. So when I entered the job market, there were people who were looking forward to having me in the workspace, but I was young as well. And the more mature ladies who were in the workplace did not have the same level of qualification that I had. Then there were younger girls who were in the workplace who also did not have the same qualification that I had. So immediately I went to work probably at a much higher level than the average 24-year-old at that point. And then I felt the weight of young people my age and a bit younger looking up to me.
Okay.
And more mature ladies who were very supportive of me, probably proud of me and what I had achieved. And a lot of male colleagues who wanted to see what a young woman could do. So while there was a lot of support and really not much negativity, there was a lot of pressure that I probably exerted on myself.
Okay.
The expectation that there are so many people who are looking up to me, and probably what I do as an individual woman in this job, in this place, at that particular time would have a lot of impact on the ability of other women to get into those particular positions. Am I doing enough to make sure that when they are interviewing next time, they are going to get another young woman? Or they will prefer to go to a woman because the conclusion is, the woman that we have,
It's a lot of pressure.
the woman that we have is not doing what we expect. So I worked hard. I worked probably over time. I wanted to be better than the best that was there. I wanted to be reliable and to be relied on. I wanted to guard against being a token female. So I wanted to do a lot of things at the same time, but that leads to burnout.
Yeah. I think
And you don't look after yourself as an individual. I learned that then because I left that job and I took a break for like 3 months, just quit and stayed at home because I was overexerting myself. I was beginning to burn out. Then after that, I think the biggest lesson that I learned was, okay, there are certain things that you need to do as a young woman that will help other people. It's not to work alone, it's to organize and have a network of sisters, aunts, mothers, and brothers that support you to ensure that there are people who always understand the pressures that are on young women when they start their job. And they need to have other young women in the workplace at the similar levels in order for support to be available and to ensure that new staff are not thrown into a pit where they can't even tell anyone of their colleagues that have period pains today because they are all men. And they would not appreciate the fact that you are wonky and you are seeing with one eye because you have terrible period pains. But other women would appreciate and they will be able to carry on the weight on your behalf. So I learned to organize instead of agonizing. And I learned that even I don't have to be there all the time.
Yeah.
If there is a platform that needs a female voice, make sure that you have a sympathizer who is in that platform or another woman in that platform. Have women in the interview room to make sure that other young women are recruited. And when they come in, support each other. So those are some of the lessons that I learned earlier on. I eventually left the private sector, the research area that I was in, and went into academia. And still, I think I still had that very high expectation that young women who are in the professions need to be the very best. So with that, I exerted a lot of pressure on students, young ladies who had potential, that don't take anything lying down. Don't let your smile earn you that extra mark. You have to work hard so that when you eventually have a position of power, that position will end and you can use that position to push other young women. I am looking at it now, maybe 20 years after that happened. And I feel that there are things that I could have done differently when I was a lecturer and helping other young women go through the system. That if I had that chance today, I would work differently because I did not really try to make them realize that the system that they're going to work to get themselves into as they start work is a system that has been in existence for thousands of years, a network that is well established.
Yeah.
And as women, when we get in there, our job is not to be acceptable
Sure.
or to be pleasing. Our job is to try to change that system in a way that more women become part of it and probably own it at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, Aleta. You spoke about organizing and not agonizing, right? I think that's an important conversation to be had, but also just the support that is provided in women networks, collaborating together, setting the benchmark, and also making sure that as you set that benchmark, you bring people in, right? I think you've actually spoken to the question that I wanted to find out about how you're changing the landscape. When you talked about your time at academia, lecturing young women, but also the pressure that was faced at 24. Wow, I mean, a master's degree at 24, I can imagine, as you've explained, the pressure that comes with it. But I think it's also one of those things that helps us push beyond that and say, you can do it too, right? I want to bring Musibudi into the conversation. Now, we share a passion for marketing and communications, but you run an organization called, a company and production of Yamamachanger. Tell me about it a bit, and then we'll talk about the barriers of entry into that market.
Okay. So I'm the co-owner of Yamamachanger, which is a company that I started with my sister. And we started it purely because we thought we were trying to close a gap that was there in our society. Producing khamere for the market that had been busy in their lives in terms of women were now empowered. They didn't have time to be making ginger beer for funerals or for weddings. So we saw that gap and we decided, let us bring back this tradition that has been taken away by the convenience of fizzy drinks or other convenient drinks that were there in the market. So we created ginger beer in a concentrate, and we actually called it convenience in a bottle at some point. And purely because we understood, especially coming from corporate, that you want to have a malobola ceremony going on, but you need to tick the boxes. They need to be mkomboti, they need to be khamere, they need to be, all of those traditional goodies that goes with the ceremony. And people don't have time for that, and you can't substitute it for something else. And we created a ginger beer, which we took on my mother's recipe. That's why we call it Yamamachanger. And we commercialized it and took it out to the market. So what we had learned through the years is that as much as there's barriers with entering the market, we needed to create our own market, and we needed to change the perception as well of the people who are going to consume this. You were talking about simplicity, and we do a simple drink, and we really needed to say this is a tradition that you are now missing, and that could be part of your lifestyle. So you don't even have to wait for a ceremony of some sort to consume it. It can be part of, and also we then started talking about the health benefits that comes with it. And from there, people then decided that this is something I can consume every day, to a point where we had broadened our markets to school tuck shops, where kids who have been for the longest time consuming fizzy drinks at school, and therefore that impacting on their health and impacting on their focus and concentration at school. Now they've taken the journey of the health route of doing things, where they're consuming water and other healthy beverages, and we fall into that space. We also thought about athletes who run. What does ginger do to the athletes who run? Ginger is it's a rehydrate, and it puts back the liquids that you lost during your running. So we needed to create our own market.
To be quite creative.
Yes. So as opposed to waiting for retail to say we want to enter into retail, we also thought of markets like the mines, you know, where we currently now supplying one of the biggest mines in the country. And you start now changing perception, you know, there's that perception of, but this is for funerals, this is for weddings. We can't consume it, but you're like, okay, I see that aspect, but there's also an aspect of a healthy beverage that you can consume. And that is going to benefit your employees in a certain manner. But all of that also, you also need to cover all aspects of the market, because should one market closes or comes with challenges, you should be able to say, I am covered in other markets as well. So don't just look at one aspect of the business. And with that, we ended up now becoming available at craft markets. You know, now you are at delicious food festivals, you know, catering for that market. And with that, you need to be creative and say, what is that market seeking? Why do they go to these festivals? Why do they go to these markets? Why do they go there? And you provide them with solutions that will cover their problems on the day. One of the beautiful things that we also introduced was having a ginger beer slush. That, you know, you can play around with it. You add strawberries, you add some alcohol to it, you make it a cocktail. You know, so now you're also now covering the restaurant markets with that aspect. You're covering the coffee shops, you're covering. So there is issues with getting the market, but you just need to look at how
to be creative.
Yes, and
to
how
break through those.
How you could target each individual market with a specific or a unique solution for them.
Get that? Yeah. So what I wanted to ask you, which was, I mean, you talk about how it was mainstream or just traditionally known for funerals or weddings, and now you've had to obviously tap into different spaces, festivals, tuck shops even, and sportsmen. How did what you studied affect your creativity process? Because one now needs to be creative and saying, okay, we have to go a different way. How did it influence that?
So, you know, with marketing I always say marketing is a simple field and everybody can do it. But you need to have a certain eye. They always say have a eye for details. You know, so it's paying attention to what is it that people need at that particular point. You might just say, yes, I'm here to offer you khamer, and then so what? You need to come up with ways, you know, to say this is going to be a solution for that aspect or that aspect, or it's going to cover this problem. And that's how you'll be able to succeed.
Okay. I think it echoes what you talked about, Busi, where you said that you started in one space but had to navigate into something else. Now, from the conversations of today, we've seen that what you start out with your career doesn't always end up with what you had perceived at the end of the journey, right? What are we doing to change this landscape? Whether we're seeing young girls come into the market saying, I want to be on TV, or I want to be a director, or I started CA and I want to be at one of the big four. What are we doing to change the landscape? I'll start with yourself, Busi. How are we changing that landscape in your personal capacity?
In my personal capacity, which I think in any way is interlinked with what I do, is we need to create an environment that's conducive, right, for female entrepreneurs to enter the market. But I think also it lies within the person, you know, that you bring in, that you need to make sure that you are hands-on, right, and you are visible to your customers. So if you want us as a corporate to take you seriously, you need to be visible. And in life, you need to be passionate about what you do, right? Because if you are passionate about what you do, no matter how frustrated or how things can go, you know, the opposite of what you expected, you will lean back on your passion. And you need to know your product and your value proposition, right? What differentiates or what innovation are you bringing to the room that the next person is not bringing? And you need to believe in that proposition, because, you know, I sit in a lot of tenders where somebody's putting their proposition across, but you can see that the body language and how they say they don't really believe in their value proposition. So that's important. You need to know your market or your industry within which you operate. You need to know who your competitors are. So who is eating your lunch? You need to understand.
Who's eating your lunch? Yeah.
Importantly, yes, you need to make sure that you are competitive from both a deliverable point of view as well as from a pricing point of view. Because as corporates, we're not going to take you in just because you are a female. There needs to be some advantage for us. You need to be solving a certain problem that you've got. And I think somebody has touched on the fact that you need to build your network.
Yeah.
You need to build your network, and you also need to manage and grow your brand. And where possible, you need to collaborate, with basically grow that brand. And in life, you need to embrace change, because the one thing that we know, that change will always happen, right?
Yeah, change is the only constant.
So you need to constantly evolve or invest in yourself as a person to make sure that you're on top of your game. And you need to learn to pick yourself up when you make mistakes. Nobody is going to save you. You need to save yourself.
No one's coming. Thank you so much, Busi. It echoes something that I'm seeing is trending, which is no one's coming. You are doing this, make it happen, do it for yourself, right? Yeah. And passion as well, I think, is very important to carry us in the journeys that we take, because your passion will outlive the trends. Your passion will outlive the haters, so to speak, right? And changing that landscape, making sure that you're passionate, but also just what I'm seeing coming out of these conversations is that as a young person, do your research. As someone who's also in the space, you've been doing it for years, don't think, you know everything, but constantly evolve, constantly change, constantly educate yourself and expose yourself. And networking is quite an important conversation. Sinclair, are you there? How are you changing the landscape for the community that you serve and the manufacturing space that you operate in?
Bernadette, I always say that self-awareness is a key factor, because if you know and passionate on what you stand for, then no one will shake you out of it. So, and if you have self-awareness, you are able to plant that seed to the next woman or to the next girl that you come across, whether in this industry or just in life general. So, personally, I try to share the knowledge that I've acquired over the years in business with every girl that comes to me or every girl that I see who is also passionate in what I do, in the sense that at Utsungodusha, we have these mini workshops that we normally run with young girls that facilitates on how to pimp your own space, how to pimp your surrounding with what you have. Doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have, in your bank account numbers that ends up with 0 digits or something like that. You can actually pimp it with what you have.
Yeah.
So I facilitate DIYs with young girls so that they can improve their spaces and be able to be proud of who they are, so that when they start to step out from the things that they have now, or from the environment or the space that they are at now, they'll be able to appreciate and also long to do more. So it's how we try to plant the seed in Utsumulusha. And it is very much, I would like to say that it is very much important that we do not keep away our success stories from the people that have witnessed where we come from, so that it can motivate them in a sense that they also want to do better or become better versions of themselves.
I like what you said, pimp your environment. That was a good one. Zodwa, on your side, how are you changing the landscape for young women?
So what we do at ZPM is we invest in assets. So we look at assets along digital value chain and a telco value chain. So a telecommunications organization, for example, goes all the way from infrastructure, which is your fiber, all the way to the retail outlets, which are the stores. And it's taken a while for us to be able to build into understanding exactly what our business path would be, but we're actually feel quite privileged that quite a number of the investments that we're making are actually landmark investments, whereby previously there'd never been women of any color investing in these assets, more especially black women or even Indian, whatever race it was, they were just not there. So we're almost the first ones in a number of these assets that are going in, and we're hoping that we're transforming the market as well, which was always a male market, and we're going in with skills and experience. You know, we're not looking for handouts. We're just saying, look, we've built this business. We want to learn, and we have the capacity and the capability to make it work. You know, and we no longer looking at just being employed, but we want to participate fully in those industries and in those markets, you know. And that's what we're doing. So 20 years from today, there shouldn't be a first black woman or a first woman anywhere in any industry.
Needs to be out.
So we're hoping that even in the smallest way in what ZPM does, we actually are changing that landscape. So the look and feel of it will have women, will have different races. But I'm also very encouraged by the young people and some of our alumni at Junior Achievement as well. I'll give you an example. Last year, we were part of building a digital education vertical for a particular business. And in our research, you know, young people are already thinking about different ways of collaborating online. They're using TikTok, they're using different apps, and they are building quite a lot of applications that are changing how teaching and learning has happened in the past. We have at Junior Achievement what we call Company of the Year. And if you look at some of the innovations that have come up from the next generation coming after us, there's a team from Eswatini that got built an agri-tech platform. They went all the way to Norway. It's just amazing how the young people are actually helping, and we need to then help them up with the mentoring. But even in my own day-to-day, my business is going into a lot of the untested, untried, and our assets are very thought through in that digital value chain. And we're hoping that the next generation will find it easier. We'll have the experience. We'll have hit our heads against the wall a couple of times. We'll have the lessons. And we're always willing to share. I was telling Gina earlier that it took us over 2 years to actually refine what it is that we're doing. And you drop certain partners along the way because you understand that partnerships and the people that you will take you into a long-term journey are maybe not the ones that you thought were great in the beginning. So choice of partners also becomes very important in terms of who do you build your team with? What are their values? What are their ethics? Are you going to, you know, when things get hard, when you can't pay, you know, for office space or for whatever it is
Yeah.
that you need to, how resilient are you as a team? So it's a lot of lessons, and the landscape is changing. We are proof that it's possible, and we're very encouraged also by the innovation and just the sheer brilliance of what we're seeing from young people coming along. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah.
And the pandemic, as much as it's really been quite detrimental to the economy, from a technology perspective,
there's a
we've
shift.
really seen a shift and an upsurge of the possibilities.
Yeah.
So we're going to come out of it with a completely changed landscape in how we even live our daily lives.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting time.
No, I have to agree with you. There's been a big shift in our new normal.
Yeah.
The way we're doing business, the way we engage as individuals. And like you say, the young people of our generation, all the youngsters that are listening, you guys are definitely setting the trends. And you have the support of women who are in business, women who are doing it, men and women actually who are doing that. I'd like to get to closing remarks as we bring this to a close. Aletta, do you have any parting remarks before we continue or come to a close?
Yes, Bernadette, thank you. I desperately need to share this information. Currently, I am with USAID here in South Africa, serving the region as the regional coordinator for the Young African Leaders Initiative. The Young African Leaders Initiative is an effort by the US government to invest in the next generation of young leaders on the continent.
Sure.
And this program really focuses on building leadership skills of young people drawn from any sector that you can imagine, and having business skills developed in them if they are interested in business entrepreneurship, skills to lead at the local level in community organization through civic leadership, and skills to lead in the public sector through public management and governance. And this program provides opportunity for young people ages 18 to 35 in 48 sub-Saharan African countries to either apply for the Mandela Washington Fellowship and travel to the US and spend 6 weeks in a university that focuses on building your skills as a leader, building your networks among other African young people of your age group and who are your peers in the work that they do. If you cannot apply to the Mandela Washington Fellowship, we have 4 regional leadership centers that are on the continent. And the center that serves 14 African countries in Southern Africa is at the University of South Africa at UNISA. And it's called the Yali Regional Leadership Center, Southern Africa.
Okay.
The work that this program does focuses on building your skills, your networks, creating opportunities for you to work with other people to transform your communities. And what we have seen through the 6 years of implementation, because the program started in 2010, but we expanded it in 2014. So the regional leadership centers have been in existence 2015 to 2021. They are still going strong. We currently have a network of over 20,000 young people who have gone through this program on the continent. And repeated surveys and evaluations of people who have gone through the yearly program show us that 97% of them report that their decision-making abilities have increased. 72% of them have reported an increase in personal income. And 68% of young women who have gone through this program speak that they are spending a whole lot more time in economic activities than they have previously. So they are beginning to realize how to manage their time and how to distribute themselves between the domestic chores, and also how to pull in their partners, probably who did not realize that there is a need for the male members of the family to take part in housekeeping, etc., while the woman earns an income or runs a business. If you complete the yearly program, you have a 59% chance of starting a new business than young people who have not gone through the yearly program. So this is an effort really to support our young people as they transform communities and change lives, not just for themselves, but for a whole lot of other people. When you start a business as a young person, you are going to employ other people. And that is what we need on the continent. I think I will stop there, Bernadette. Thank you.
Thank you, Aletse. We'll actually make that information available to anyone who's attending. The YALU program is definitely a dynamic program, and we see it in a lot of young leaders who are impacting policy, who are impacting decision-making in legislative space. So thank you so much for that. Musibudi, closing remarks from your side.
So I just want to say we've now moved away from the era where you go to university and you are employed, where you could now create your own future and employ others and creating a legacy. So I think we're a perfect example of that, where we're creating a legacy to our kids, and we also want to create a legacy for the staff that we also employ, so that they also know that they can be in a space where employment is not according to what it was 20 years ago. You know, employment can be done by yourself, can be, you know, generated within your environment. And it's simple. I want to go back to the simplicity and the networking and the credibility. It takes a simple idea. You know, it takes the networks. You were so right. Do not burn any bridges. You know, make sure that your relationships that you have from high school, from university going onwards, are beautiful relationships, so that you're able to go back to those networks and say, I need assistance with this. I need, even if it's not monetary assistance.
Well, how can we collaborate?
Yes.
How can we collaborate?
It could also be that. And again, the space of credibility. You need to create a network that when people are going to be going back to say we need to do a background check, they always go back to people who are going to speak positive of you. And they understand your brand ethos, and they understand your vision, and they understand where do you want to be. And that creates a beautiful space for an entrepreneur to be in. Even, you'll be surprised that banks will even call your friends and ask, how is this person managing their money? And purely because they want to understand beyond the ticking of a form that you're completing for that loan. So we need to think beyond what we were taught, by our mothers, and take it on with a different world now. And worldview.
I think we've had a very amazing conversation. I've been taking notes. I don't know about you. If you're there and you're in the chat, you want to say something or comment, please do so. Let's not forget our hashtag, which is Changemakers2021, as well as hashtag Citi Foundation, as well as JASA Women's Day 2021. Before we close, I'd like to just bring Busi into the conversation for your closing remarks. Time is against us, so we can move on to the Learning Lab. If you're in there, in the chat, once again, send through your comments. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to engage with you. Busi, before we close, any parting remarks on your side?
From my side, I want to say to all the females out there, there's no better time like now. So the time is now. You need to stand up. You need to make your mark. There's lots of opportunities that are available from a corporate and from an entrepreneurial space. Make your mark today. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome stuff. We've received a comment from Kate Gekana. This conversation goes back to what was said earlier. Stay curious and stay hungry. Absolutely. Thank you for echoing those words. And with that, we'd like to bring this to a close. I'd like to thank all my panelists. Thank you so much for joining me. Those that are online and connecting virtually, thank you so much for your time. Welcome back. Now, we did say we want to engage with you. We did say we want to hear from you. So if you haven't sent a comment or chat, please do so. If you haven't tweeted or done a Facebook post, please do so now. Like I said, we have a second quiz coming up, and the winners go away with 500 Rand in a takealot.com voucher. So the question is as follows. What's the key skill required to succeed in the corporate world? What's the key skill required to succeed in the corporate world? Now, the fastest fingers get the prize. Please put your comments or your answers right now. Well done, Robin. Robin Brown has answered and got that right. Thank you so much. Now we move on to an exciting time, which is a breakaway learning lab with MasterCard for the cashless payment methods and setting up an online store. I'd like to bring into the conversation Anita Opperman, who's a director of commercial sales and a specialist at MasterCard. Anita, welcome to the show. Over to you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm so honored and so happy to be here this morning. Yes, my name is Anita. I'm with MasterCard, and today I'm going to chat a little bit about SMEs and just where we see SMEs moving in the e-commerce and the digital space. At MasterCard, we are very passionate about SMEs. We believe in those who take risks and follow their dreams to start a business. We are working very hard with our partner banks and fintechs to make sure that SMEs get paid securely, that they are able to pay their suppliers, get capital, and most importantly, get digital wherever they are. At MasterCard, we are leveraging our insights to guide ideas, our innovations to build solutions, and our networks to not only fuel momentum, but to drive security. We believe that when we work together as a team, we can drive economic equality, to make sure that we survive and we thrive and we grow even stronger than before. SMEs, like I said, we are passionate about SMEs. We understand that there are over 150 million SMEs across the globe, and they contribute 50% to the global GDP. They also employ 2/3 of the world's workforce, and minorities own up to 45% of SMEs. In South Africa, the National Development Plan envisioned that by 2030, SMEs will contribute 60 to 80% of the GDP increase and generate 90% of the 11 million new jobs in our country, which is really exciting. But it really doesn't come without its challenges. We all know that COVID-19, has had a very negative impact, not only on revenues, but also in businesses thriving and surviving, going forward. A lot of SMEs were not ready, for what happened when the pandemic hit us, over 500 days ago. And 84% of SMEs that were surveyed, according to the MasterCard Confident Index, and that was published in June this year, said that the pandemic really impacted their revenues negatively. And this has really brought about a mindset change, a change that most businesses weren't really ready for. But, it forced us to kind of look at, well, where do we go from here? What do we need to do to actually get our businesses to move forward? And this is why SMEs have to think about going digital and how to even grow digital, and to make sure that, revenues continue to flow during these uncertain times. If I think about COVID and even the recent riots and looting that we saw in our country, it's usually SMEs that are at the forefront or the first casualties, in difficult economic times. And it's because of how their businesses are set up, smaller clientele, very heavy reliance on the traditional sort of ways of doing business. But like I said, we are, it is important for us during this time that we actually get together and support SMEs to move forward. 3 other statistics that I would just like to share with you that came out of a recent study is that 43% of businesses had to close their doors over the last 18 months. 60% of permanent jobs were lost, and spending was reduced by 70% because of the huge amount of retrenchments and even businesses having to operate on short time. So where is all of this going? So we know that global e-commerce has been increasing over the last few years. In 2019, global retail e-commerce was around $3.5 trillion. That's a big amount. Consumers are starting to shop, more online. 60% of consumers locally have started shopping more online, and 71% have said that they most likely will continue with the new way of shopping even post the pandemic. So once customers have moved from the in-store type of payments to online payments, their behavior has changed. And I think about my own spending behavior. It has definitely changed. There are certain things that I now only buy online, but you can be guaranteed that your customers' behavior, have also adapted over the last few years. And I want to chat to you a little bit around, what does this mean and how can we help to actually get you to think about taking your business forward a little bit differently. So this rise in online shopping, it has brought about, or as actually the landscape has created 2 types of businesses, those who adapt and thrive and those who unfortunately are left behind. So forward-thinking companies are recognizing how the online world can increase their profits. And, businesses risk losing revenue if they fail to adapt. So who is actually winning in this new digital revolution? If you look at 2 businesses, or if you have perhaps, a colleague or a family member who is in another type of business different to yours, your businesses aren't identical, your needs aren't identical, but what you both maybe have to deal with is, increased competition. Customers are now able to go online very quickly and, compare prices, compare goods and services, which leads to that higher customer expectation, when it comes to the delivery of those goods and services, which also leads to deeper financial pressure. But if you are able to digitize your business, you do have the potential of increasing your revenue at an average of 40%. And like I said, we understand that it's not easy. Not everybody has the skills, or the internal IT skills often required to set up or maintain some kind of an online presence. What does it take to even, create a website, let alone, have payment options built into that website. Third-party solutions can be costly. We recognize that. And the existing technology that's available might not be flexible for, the different levels of SMEs that we see in this country. So South Africa's nascent e-commerce industry, which prior to the pandemic was only around 1.4%, and as well as this growing demand for online shopping has really highlighted this gap. And we really need to talk about it. You know, how do we help SMEs to overcome in order to survive? You know, what are the tools that are available? You know, while some businesses are still trying to figure out the logistics and operations, and how they're going to get the goods and services into the hands of their consumers, you know, differently, you know, there are limited resources that are available, you know, in order for you to turn things around quite quickly. So, you know, we believe that, you know, we've been prepared, you know, for this environment, and we're growing on an ongoing basis as we think of new ways to actually meet the needs of our SMEs. And some of those solutions, as we think about, you know, the rise of the way payments are going. So COVID-19 has raised these health concerns. So everyone needs to think about social distancing. They think about, you know, touching of devices, you know, when they are shopping in store. And we have, over the last few years, slowly started introducing contactless ways of actually accepting payments, you know, as an SME. You know, I'm going to just highlight a few of these because we're going to start talking about online in a couple of minutes. But the first one is QR. I'm sure everyone is quite familiar with, you know, being able to scan a QR code. As an SME, you can accept payments that originates from the mobile wallet of your customer, or tap on phone, which allows you to accept a contactless payment where the payment originates from the consumer's mobile device using the NFC antenna. The IMPOS is the use of an external dongle, which pairs nicely with your own mobile or smartphone device or tablet. And then our MasterCard payment gateway, or our e-commerce gateway, is really a service that allows our acquiring banks to provide a white label solution whereby you could very easily bring your business online and accept payments online. And it leads quite nicely into a partnership that I'd like to share with you using this gateway. So at MasterCard, we've entered into a strategic collaboration which form parts of our global pledge to pledge $250 million to support small businesses over the next 5 years. And it's because we've made a commitment that we would like to connect 50 million micro, small and medium businesses to the global digital economy by 2025. And you know, when we found out about this at the onset of the pandemic, you know, very quickly, we also had to think differently about how we were engaging with our customers, and how we were going to really add value to the sectors that, you know, that we are working in. And this partnership that came about was, you know, first of all, very close to my heart, because it really felt that, you know, when we brought these different partners together, that it really felt like that we were making a difference in the lives of SMEs. And the challenge or the pain points that we were very aware of from an SME perspective is that we knew SMEs needed to reach their customers. You know, when you advertise your goods or your services, you do this, you know, via social media platform. But what does it mean? And, you know, where do the tools actually come in for you to then use social media you know, and even the internet to actually bring your goods and services closer to your customers. So the partnership is between MasterCard, Standard Bank, and Google. And I already mentioned that we've made this pledge that we want to invest some money to bring solutions, you know, towards SMEs. Standard Bank provided, you know, Simply Blue, which is powered by our simplified commerce. And this enables customers to create their own online store, accept digital payments, manage invoices and fraud in a single portal. And then the Google partnership actually comes in where Google will also help SMEs to set up the store, but then they are offering the 500 Rand worth of Google ads, you know, for customers that enter into this partnership or take up the offer. And then the store builder, which in the offer allows the web store builder allows SMEs to offer their products via this e-commerce store, and allows you to create the store, add your products, publish and promote your products, while obviously creating that visibility through social media or the Google platform. So, you know, if I think about, you know, what advice can we add and how is going digital going to help you to rebuild and future-proof your business? So, increased competition, you know, higher consumer expectation. We spoke a little bit about that financial pressure, has really heightened this need to go digital. And having an online presence, you know, can impact your customer expectations, you know, as well. So, you know, if I think about, you know, in closing, what advice could I possibly offer? You know, I would say to you, you know, you are no longer faced with the traditional barriers in terms of interacting with your competitors. You know, if customers were interacting with you on a face-to-face basis, now they can easily compare products. You know, consider how or which platforms your customers are using to shop at the moment. But then think about how you can differentiate. You know, what is the value proposition that you can deliver from a point of view, knowing that, you know, or having a view of what your customers' needs are. And then think about how you can strengthen that digital tool belt. You know, when it comes to running a business, this is going to be one of your most precious resources. Finding new ways that you could become efficient and try to increase your bottom line. So, and then speed up your customer payments. You know, you've made the sale. You know, make sure that you offer multiple ways for your customer to actually pay you. You know, shorten the payment terms. You know, if you have agreed that your customer can pay you later, make sure that you follow up on those payments and you are able to automatically generate your bills while storing your customer information and send it out on time. Improve your cash flow. You know, when it comes to the success of a business, cash flow is king. I think we're all very well aware of this. We also know that a lot of small businesses do actually fail due to cash flow problems. You know, slow payments, you know, can happen to any business from time to time, but make sure that you stay on top of those payments coming in and that it doesn't hamper, you know, paying your employees or even your suppliers on time. You know, using, you know, a credit product actually allows you to almost have almost like an interest-free loan if you use a card to, to pay your suppliers and then pay that card on time. That is also an extending your cash flow, almost up to 30 days. Keep an eye on your finances and make sure that you are automating as many of your payments as possible in the shortest amount of time. And then finally, and I think most importantly, think about security. Using digital tools offer you and your customers peace of mind. Digital payments use encryption that actually protects your financial information, and mobile payments, we chatted about that a little bit, actually keeps your customers' information in their wallet and not on your point of sale device. And this is a great way, if you think about how you are storing your customers' information, that the risk actually doesn't sit with you, in case of, any kind of breach or cyber attack. And I hope you enjoyed that little overview, and thank you for your time. If you do need any additional information, feel free to reach out to us. I've left our details over here, and more information on the Simply Blue e-commerce partnership with Standard Bank and Google. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you for that. I think we'd like to take some questions from the audience. If you have any questions, please post them in your chat so we can pose it to Anita. Okay. The cashless payment methods and setting up an online store. Now, we all know that with COVID and the pandemic, it's definitely something that's needed, right, Anita?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, like I mentioned in the presentation, it's it's something that we've been prepared for.
Yeah.
We often think about our as a payment network, our biggest competitor has always been cash. Thinking about how we could replace cash. It is expensive, and now also it raises health concerns. So it's definitely something that SMEs need to think about, as soon as possible, especially during these times.
And especially having an online store right now, the safety like you spoke about, whether the cash touching actual money, but also safety from a perspective as a shopper, so the online stores, we've seen a huge growth in that regard. So thank you so much for that. What an important learning lab, especially for our time today, right, Nelly? Yeah, so we've gotten a question, the last quiz. We just love giving prizes. So we have a question, the last quiz, and the winners stand a chance to win a 500 Rand takealot.com voucher. So the fastest fingers get the prize. Let's wait for that question. Now, based on the survey by MasterCard Index, what percentage of South African SMMEs said that the COVID-19 pandemic negatively impacted their revenue? Remember, first answer gets the prize. Let me read that question again. Based on the survey by MasterCard Index, what percentage of South African SMMEs said that the COVID pandemic negatively impacted their revenues? Congratulations, Itumeleng. You got 84% right. Well done. Congratulations. We will be sending your prize. Before we hand over to our Managing Director, Nelly Mufokeng, we'd like to remind the audience that we will be bringing you into the platform so we can have a group picture, if you don't mind. Please hang on after Nelly. I know she's exciting to listen to, and when you're done, please stay with us so that we can take that picture. Over to you, Nelly.
Thank you, Benedict. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What an insightful event. Now, I don't know if it's coming off my own personal journey and the sharp curves I've had to navigate, especially in the past year, but I must say a lot of what was said today truly resonates with me. I hope the feeling is mutual. I hope you're feeling excited today and really inspired from all the discussions that have taken place. From the thought-provoking fireside chat with Gina that really challenged us to never settle for less, to remain focused, and to continue to steer the universe towards gender equality. Really powerful insights there. To the impactful journey of our panel, how they are navigating these challenging times and continue to try and break barriers. Really some outstanding insights there. I trust that you all took away some really good nuggets from that discussion. Now, in this unpredictable and rapidly changing world, where consumers are increasingly expecting access to products and services seamlessly and consistently through different channels and touch points, I hope that the Learning Lab has unveiled possibilities for you to continue to reach your customers at their point of need. But most importantly, I hope that this event has given you courage to really claim your power, to really be the best that you can be and be the change makers of our time. So whether you're building on your current venture, keeping it nimble, or completely repurposing your course, remember, you have it in you. So keep challenging yourself, never stop working towards your goal. Now, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank Citi Foundation for making this event possible. A special thank you to the Citi South Africa team. Thank you, Peter, for making the time to be with us today. Megs and Lerato, thank you for working this journey with us and making sure we have all the resources that we need. Working with you is always a pleasure. Our sincere gratitude goes to all our speakers, Gina, Busi, Zodwa, Aleta, Musiburi, Zintle, and Anita. Thank you so much for giving generously of your time and sharing with such sincerity. To our colleagues at the Africa Regional Operating Center and to our board, thank you for entrusting us with this important task and supporting us throughout. Thank you to the team at Creative Space Media. You have been absolutely amazing. My colleague Benedict, thank you really for steering this ship and making sure it remains on course, from supporting with logistics to being literally the face of the event. Thank you for doing it so graciously.
My pleasure.
And to the team at J South Africa, thank you for always being there and ready to roll up your sleeves and support when requested. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for gracing us with your presence today and for being such an amazing audience. We wish you all a fantastic Women's Month. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you so much, Nelly, for that. Really humbling to be part of this experience. We have some amazing comments from those who've attended, from Itumeleng Klokotsi. It feels great to know that we have people looking out for us there. Keep up the good work and stay blessed. Thank you, Itumeleng. Lerato said, such an amazing session. Thank you for the guidance and the guidelines to help us all succeed, especially in these times. It's only a pleasure, Lerato. Now, we are ready to take the group photo, so please stay ready as we snap away. I will give you a cue when that is ready. Okay, we're gonna do a countdown. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Smile. Hello. Hi there. Thank you so much for joining us. Guys, we've come to the end of the program, so we'd really appreciate you guys for joining, and we'd like to wish you a prosperous Women's Month, and Like I started this conversation, watinta bafazi, watinta mpogoto. Cheers to you. Thank you.